Hello, welcome to this episode of Rich Insights. I'm Don Rich, Head of Investments for Esoteric Capital Markets. Today's topic is a reality check. I like to say, folks, this ain't no vacation we're on. This isn't an extended vacation. It seems like we're still treating this slowdown as a speed bump. Like an extended vacation, where soon we'll all go back to work and things will immediately return to how they were before the coronavirus. I just don't think that's going to happen. I think that fairy tale thinking is not only dangerous, it's just plain wrong. All right, now in a few weeks, we're going to get the hard numbers. But it looks like somewhere between 20 and 25% unemployment numbers are coming at us. All right. So that's 1 in 4 to 1 in 5 people will be laid off, have been laid off during this virus. Again, we know from the weekly information, the number total is about 30 million people since the virus started. 1 in 4 to 1 in 5 people. And to assume that we're all just going to go back to work is just wrong. It might be wishful thinking, but it's not going to happen, people. It's just not going to happen. And all the retail shops, all the outlets, all the stores that we're used to, you think they're just going to immediately reopen? We'll have no casualties throughout this pullback. I just don't see it. This pullback has been historic. Let's take a look at some of the evidence here. Here we're looking at weekly gasoline consumption, just falling off a cliff. Right, the numbers have fallen off a cliff. It's like nothing that we've ever witnessed before. This is just historic. Now maybe we have a parallel. Maybe there's a comparable. And if so, that would be the Great Depression. But none, or just about all of our data, particular macroeconomic data, do not go that far back. And so it's hard to tell whether or not there's even any comparable in history. But if it is, it's likely to be just the Great Depression, the amount of demand destruction that we have witnessed. So there's gasoline. Here's oil. Boom, same thing. Goes all the way back, this chart goes back to the 1990s, early 90s. We've witnessed nothing before like this. Well, you say things were bad in 2008, 2009. Nothing even close. We are talking multiples different. In terms of what we're witnessing today versus back then. In fact, the general rule of thumb is that all the data we're looking at is near the depths of the Great Recession, if not already exceeding that. All right, let me say that one more time. The information we have to date, which is still limited, but the information we have to date says that the numbers are as bad or worse than anything we experienced during 2008. Let's keep going here. Auto sales. Right. Again, you can see where we're at. Now, next month, we quite possibly will surpass the 2008 and 1982 levels. But just tremendous demand destruction. Now, everything I showed you so far is on the consumption side. Right? The consumption of gasoline, the consumption of oil, the consumption of automobiles. Well, the reverse has to be true as well, right? The production, the industrial output or industrial production. The 1 month change here. It's unlike anything we've ever witnessed. Far worse than 2008 and 2009. Now, on top of the hard evidence we have today, I'd like you to just stop for a second and think, what's going to happen when we're given the all clear? All right, the first thing I'm going to do is get a damn haircut. All right, I hate this long hair. But are we going to go out to restaurants immediately? Is that the first thing we're going to do? Go to movie theaters, sporting events, music concerts, things of that nature? Is that really how it's going to work? Just somebody says, all right, and we all go back to normal. I don't think it's going to happen that way. Our social lives may have been permanently changed. If not permanently changed, it's just going to take some time. I'm talking months or perhaps a couple of years before our spending habits go back to a more normal sort of environment. So what do we do with this information? Well, I think we have to stop lying to ourselves. That's the most important thing. We have to stop lying to ourselves. This slowdown, as you just witnessed from the charts, is unlike anything we've ever seen. It's historic, unprecedented, never seen before, whatever term you want to use. The magnitude of this really, it's hard to overemphasize. And you just don't bounce back from such an extreme experience. All this talk about V-shaped recovery and the light switch, going back to normal immediately, I just don't see it. I don't see it. It's going to take an extended period of time. Again, I'm thinking months, if not 1 to 2 years. So that's the backdrop we're operating in. Right? The consumption and production numbers just falling off a cliff. All right? That's the backdrop. Now, let's go back to the charts. What's happening here? Year-to-date equity returns. Given that backdrop, year-to-date equity returns are down 12%. Are you kidding me? The worst slowdown in history, perhaps, and we're looking at a 12% pullback. Look at the NASDAQ down here, less than 4%. And you got some other markets from around the world as well. Minus 4%, minus 12%. Given the economic backdrop. Now, let's add some salt to the wound. What did things look like when we went into this downturn? Well, valuations were nuts. Remember? Here, what we're looking at is what's often referred to as the Buffett valuation measure. This is a measure of the value of Main Street to the value of Wall Street. Right? It's U.S. GDP divided by the market capitalization of the entire U.S. stock market. Now, folks, what we're looking at here is a December number. It's going to be a couple weeks before we get the first quarter numbers. So we're looking at a December number. Before the pullback, prices were already at the highest ever. We'll say that once more. We're looking at the most expensive equity market ever, according to this ratio. So we're going into the downturn with that framework. We were going into the downturn with that framework, and then we had this tremendous demand destruction, right, for the production and the consumption numbers. And yet we're down 12% in the S&P 500. We're down less than 4% on the NASDAQ. So the question I ask you, the question I keep asking myself is, does this make sense? And the only conclusion I can come up with is hell no. This does not make any sense to me. The year-to-date performance we're seeing in equity markets just seems to be out of sync with two things. The reality that we live in today, right? The reality that we're facing, and the framework that we were operating in when we came into this slowdown. So based on those two factors, I'm just very concerned about the near-term outlook for the investment horizon. I'm very concerned about the near-term investment performance. All right, so that's our message for today. I'm Don Rich. You just experienced a rich insight. I hope you've enjoyed it. May your beer be colder than the company you keep. We'll talk again soon. Thank you.